Hello, everyone. Before I start, I would like to take the opportunity to acknowledge that I am speaking to you all from the unceded Indigenous territory of the Ga Nation. They are the recognized custodians of the lands and the waters on which I'm standing on here today. Jakchoga, or Montreal, is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations, and it is a privilege for me to pay my humble respects to elders past and present of the Ga Nation, and to extend that respect to all Indigenous peoples from coast to coast to coast. Whoops, I'm going to make this. Oh, is it working? Let's see. So before I start, I'm going to see if this actually works. Is it working? Oh, my slides are not working. There we go. My name is Tammy Lee, and I am a settler Canadian. And with my colleagues, Caitlin Troughton and Gregory Simeon Finch, we're the co-founders of a social enterprise and semantic technology company called Culture Creates. Today, I've been asked to talk about Artsdata and how it could be used to support data reuse in the performing arts. A little more about Artsdata itself. Artsdata is a national repository of linked open data about performing arts events. It's an initiative originally spearheaded by the executive leadership of Crow's Theatre that is currently in the process of being transferred to Capicoa and to a larger community of Artsdata partners. So my role today is as a member of the company providing the technology services. So that's the reason why I'm here. And before I get into a concrete example, I would like to take a moment to touch on some basics, like what is semantic technology? Why do we need it? Or rather, why should the art sector care? So what is semantic technology? Semantic technology, in a nutshell, is the act of explicitly assigning meaning to a piece of data and its relationship to another piece of data, so machines can understand, right? And as we know, because we're here at the Canadian Open Data Society, the semantic infrastructure we end up with is a knowledge graph of linked data. No surprise, knowledge graphs are used in large-scale multinational corporations, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Disney, governments. At least I hope governments are using knowledge graphs. They should be interested, particularly if they want to create algorithms based on different values that are positive for society, not attached to a business model to line shareholders' pockets. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. It is also the technology of the internet. Knowledge graph technology on the internet is the reason why everybody uses Google search. The internet is where machines look for answers. So let's take a look at the types of general data available on websites that machines confront on the daily. At a basic level, there is raw data, raw characters and symbols. Not much a machine can do with that. Raw data needs to be refined into information, data in a usable form, meaning machine readable data. And with that, bots can conduct a traditional search, a Web 2.0 search, looking for strings and doing matches, pointing to links. That's the internet that I know and understand. I'm in my 50s. But that's still not quite enough for a machine to provide an answer. Information needs to be linked and enriched with semantics to create knowledge, a knowledge graph. So the baseline to be considered for a semantic search, the web of today, Web 3.0, is machine readable linked data enriched with semantics, level 3. So why should the performing arts care? Because the majority of its online data standards fall on level 1 and level 2 and anywhere in between. They don't even make the baseline for the web of today. So there are efforts in the arts community to fix this problem. Multiple digital literacy and discoverability campaigns are out there. Part of what my team and I do at Culture Creates is offer a series of processes and tools for a performing arts organization to generate the right type of event metadata on a website. And I'm talking about title, date, location, description, who the organization is, who's presenting, website link, ticket link, image, etc. We want to make sure that information about what's happening in the arts in Canada is made available to machines and people. So step one, performing arts organizations, we've got them covered. They can use one of our tools or not, and it doesn't matter because there are a bunch of methods and tools out there. The important thing for them is to do it. Make information about events and performances available to machines and people. However, there is a nuance. I have a caveat. Because everyone is so focused on discoverability, people fail to realize the full potential value of structured metadata is harnessed when captured, stored, and integrated in a knowledge graph. So what else do we do at Culture Creates? We've been hired by several arts organizations like Crow's Theatre and like Capicoa to make sure event metadata arts organizations make available on their websites are harnessed and integrated to an open knowledge graph called Artsdata. So the full potential value of structured metadata can be available to any stakeholder for whatever goal they may want to achieve. And what makes Artsdata special is the application of FAIR. And when I say FAIR, I mean the set of guiding data principles published by the science community in 2016, where data openly shared is made to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, all of which combined optimizes the reuse of data. So principle number one, findable. Make your metadata findable. Whatever information you want your public to find, please do all that you can, no matter the sector, to make it available to both machines and people. That's the basis of discoverability. Step one. Accessible. Make access as easy as possible with a protocol that is open, free, and universally implementable. And when you have all this accessible metadata, it can be integrated with other data sources and interoperate with different applications and different workflows. The benefit of having interoperability is that it can be used by anyone, by any machine, by any software. As a digital infrastructure, a knowledge graph is inherently technology agnostic. It can be used by technology we have today and the technology we'll have tomorrow. It's efficient, cost-effective, modular. It can decrease sector-wise switching costs of software and the cost of development itself. So less money spent here means capacity can be directed elsewhere. In the IT industry, the majority of money spent is transferring data from one isolated software to another isolated software. 90% of IT is spent doing that. So if we didn't have to do that, it will free up a lot of capacity to be focused on other types of innovation. Reusable. So the whole point of FAIR is to make data reusable. Artsdata as a knowledge graph infrastructure creates capacity for others to share information about what's happening in the arts in Canada. So think B2B, business to business, organizations and enterprises, small and large, like a listing site, a tourism board, a smart city, an enterprise platform, a search engine, a recommendation system, Siri, OK Google, Alexa. These are opportunities for more digital presence and online discoverability. So how can FAIR be applied? Here's a typical presenter. So a presenter that we're actually working with, Sal Odyssey. Presenting organizations that present shows with upwards of 10, 75, 325 performances per year, manually enter event information on a website. Then manually copy paste the same information into a ticketing platform, then again for Facebook, and often have to do this process a third, fourth, and fifth time for a local tourism and media site or various regional and municipal cultural listings. This is the case for this presenter, Sal Odyssey. Also, on top of that, arts organizations and agents manually enter event information on websites, then on Facebook, and then on various presenter network and government platforms such as I Want to Showcase, Send Pro, Ontario Presents, Pitch.ca, and CADIC. So what this tells me is that an arts organization, and by extension, the entire Canadian arts sector, has a veneer of digital capability without the means to draw on the larger benefits provided by technology on the web. And for us as a company, by helping solve what looks like a really small problem of repeated manual entry, exists an opportunity to trigger a fundamental systemic change on the web that helps information about the performing arts, its organizations, and artists to thrive online. So at Culture Creates, we see that the lowest hanging use case for Artsdata, the knowledge graph infrastructure of what's happening in the arts in Canada, is developing a graph calendar that fulfills a need in the sector and helps to create the conditions for the exponential sharing of metadata on the internet. Called Footlight, this graph calendar is currently being developed, and there are features made possible in the software only because it is powered by Artsdata, like minimizing manual entry as much as possible. Unlike other calendar tools, Footlight has a very important differentiating factor. It's designed to nurture a larger metadata ecosystem by sharing and reusing metadata to and from Artsdata. This bi-directional link is significant. By not confining public metadata to a database of a single app, as is the case for pretty much every single listing and or calendar tool today, means that information about arts events are readily available for anyone, part of the larger community outside of Footlight, to reuse. So we're currently building a graph calendar for Culture Outaouais. Culture Outaouais is a regional cultural council, and they really want this calendar so they can put it in their listing, and Sal Odyssey, who is a presenter in their region, has one less manual entry to do. So today, they're manually entering that information into Culture Outaouais. But with the graph calendar that we're building, they don't have to do that. And La Vitrine, which is a provincial Quebec listing, will also be able to reuse that same event metadata. Today, as well, someone at La Vitrine is manually entering that information of Sal Odyssey into their listing. Because the foundation of Artsdata is an open knowledge graph using fair data principles, anyone else can come along and build other tools to support and add to the Artsdata ecosystem. So when people use and share machine-readable metadata available in an open knowledge graph, the more machine-readable metadata used and shared, the more an open knowledge graph grows in utility and value. The impact of FAIR means a wider, broader, more diverse and inclusive community can have access to an efficient, cost-effective, capacity-building, modular metadata infrastructure that can be used by anyone and by any machine. Artsdata provides a framework for an online ecosystem that offers a more equitable distribution of the opportunities available on the internet to a wider community. And the arts community will be able to stay in lockstep, stay relevant and thrive with the technology of today and the changing technology of the future that is and will become available on the web. So that is my presentation. And I wondered if anybody has any questions, or if I need to go over anything else that you would like. Actually, I can barely see. What I'd really like to know is who's in the room.
Sure, it's a roundtable. You know me very well, Tammy. So I'll skip my turn. I'm Frederic, and I've been working with Tammy supporting the development of the Artsdata knowledge graph.
Oh, I can't see. So I don't know who's in the room.
Oh, Guy Gordon. I'm a consultant on the project management side, but also involved in text analytics AI startup.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
We've got a few people from the government of Yukon here. So my name is Sarah Berquist, and I'm the UX manager for the government of Yukon.
Wonderful.
I'm Linnea. I'm also with the same department as Sarah, though I have been working with tourism and culture, and these last two talks have really brought to mind the work that we just did on the creative and cultural industry strategy. Connect some of that, so thank you for this.
So yeah, so my sort of little comment was I was hoping that somebody from government will be in the room, which is the reason why I said, if you're in government, you should be interested in knowledge graphs.
I'm Jody. I also work at Youth Services at the Yukon government, and I'm a service delivery manager.
Wonderful.
And I'm the same role as Jody. We all came as a little group.
Yeah.
We got one more.
Oh, Dave here. Yeah, I'm on the tech side with the same group. So that was much more technical than I was expecting. I appreciate that for my own needs, but it's funny because Whitehorse Yukon or the territory as a whole is very into arts, and there's always like a million things going on. And I could just imagine every single one of these little groups having to retype every single one of these little things 1,000 times to get into every single one of those little pamphlets and websites and what's on and newspaper and
yes, and just to to reiterate that fact, right? There are those regional groups in Quebec. Culture the Way, they have their own calendar listing. La Vitrine has their own calendar listing. Culture Gaspésie has their own calendar listing. Culture Estrie has their own calendar listing. And they're all building software from scratch and building these listings for their websites, all from scratch in an isolated, siloed calendar. The City of Toronto just did it in also their own listing. Nothing speaks to each other.
In Quebec in particular, you have regional cultural councils who have their cultural listings, and then the regional tourism associations having their own cultural listings as well. Oh, not just cultural, but listings of events as well from a tourism perspective. A lot of this information is the same, and it needs to be manually populated each time. So that's something that we are attempting to change for sure.
So not being a technical person, let me ask the question just on that point that was made. So I have each one of these groups either will probably use something that they procured, or it could be a custom or an open source content management system. They've got some version of something, and I get it. There's the person, they're trained, up comes the field. I've got my little calendar. I've got to manually enter the data. Are those organizations wedded? Like, where's their opportunity to get off that? What do you call them?
The snowball,
or the
hamster wheel. The hamster wheel.
Get off the hamster wheel. So, are they locked in to this legacy investment they made, or are you suggesting leverage
so
what
I'm suggesting is we could use the internet, the web. So all this knowledge graph technology is focused on the web. So if they have structured data on their website, Artsdata is about linking all the available information on the website, event information on websites. So having structured data, making it machine readable, and getting your website to level 3 means Artsdata can come around and collect that information, and you link it to Artsdata, and it's open on the web. So part of Artsdata is a knowledge graph, which is the technology of how the internet. This is how Google finds answers for us. All I'm suggesting is that we take that discoverable information that we want all the arts organizations to make discoverable on their websites, is to link it into a sector accessible national repository of online metadata about event information that anyone can use. So you get off the hamster wheel, you can choose your own CMS, you can choose your own tool that you want to build your website with. But if you make it available online for the web, Artsdata can come along and link it. And we want that effort the collective effort to build Artsdata as a national repository of event information. So Sal Odyssey, which does it 5 times, by the way, and they have 325 events a year, they do it 5 times, that manual entry. So we can just avoid doing those entries 5 times, and then your website becomes the source of your master data. You know, and I said my age, I'm 50, so I like going to websites and going to links. My kid does not. Our children will not be visiting websites in the future. It doesn't mean that we don't have web presence, but it means the role of the information that we put on a website, on the internet, changes. And it needs to be able to travel to where our public will be, where my kid will be. Because I forced him to go see dance shows since he was 5. He will still go see shows, but he just won't get that information on a website. So I want to make sure performing arts information is going to go to where he's going to be when he's 20. Yeah.
And if I may connect the dots with Tammy's session and the one that I presented previously, let's presume we get to the point where we do have a lot of information about Indigenous artists and organizations that are identified as Indigenous-led. Then it becomes possible to link that information to productions and events by these entities and make that information queryable, so that if I'm the local tourism association and I want to know what are the Indigenous experiences that I can provide as offers to my tourists, then I can run the query, pull that out, and load it to my website.
You know, adding on to what Frederick just said is that if we build sort of like a data pipeline that the art sector can use, that means the community can decide how it wants to define itself. The community can decide how it wants to enrich those pieces of data. So, you know, and we want as many tools to be built on top of Artsdata, not just us, you know, the company that I work with doing Footlight, but we want other companies to be able to use Artsdata and generate new innovation. But I also think, you know, you need to create the conditions for innovation. You need to build sort of the infrastructure that allows that capacity to happen. And to expect, you know, a single arts organization, oh, I'm going to come up with this infrastructure, and you know, we do need leadership at the government level. So the reason why I'm staring at all the people who work at the Yukon government. The reason why, you know, spurring into innovation means creating that infrastructure that allows innovators to come and use it. The innovator the innovator is going to innovate, but giving them the fertile ground on which to do it. And I think knowledge graphs of public metadata, not just the performing arts information, but knowledge graphs of public metadata is I think the way to do it. If a government gives money to any company, whatever public metadata that they have should be linked to an open knowledge graph that is reusable by anybody else. That's a big picture 2 cents. I just happen to care about the performing arts.
I got another question if I can.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm over 50 and I'm thick. So I just want to think about this. Can you just go back and just explain to me?
Yeah.
Explain again the knowledge graph concept and what it means. Now, I do get the idea fundamentally that the utilization of websites as they're currently constructed is somewhat anachronistic. I get the idea that people will want to have a presence, but the reality of the utilization and how I'm going to search it. You mentioned Siri. You mentioned Google.
I got you. Your name is Guy? Guy?
Yeah.
Because I can't, I wish, you know, I love Whitehorse. I've actually been, I love it there. I'm sorry that I'm not there. Okay, Guy, I have 4 minutes. I see that I have 4 minutes. I'm going to do an analogy. Listen, I'm going off the cuff here. I'm going off script. Okay.
Go for it.
So I'm going to try to make sure that you understand why the knowledge graph. Okay. So imagine the internet as a library with thousands and thousands of books going on willy-nilly. They're just being entered in the library, going on a shelf. You know, whatever shelf, in no order. There's no order, and just books are going into the library on the shelf, right? and you have to find something in that library. Well, it's damn near impossible for you to find something. You're going to need a superhuman librarian to find things for you, right? So that superhuman librarian kind of remembers where all the books are, right? And then on top of it, that superhuman librarian is asking you, can you make sure you put the right title on the spine of the book and in the index, all the information that I need so I can, and description on the back cover, so I don't have to read the book really, but I can know what the book's about. So if you needed to find something in that library, that superhuman librarian is I'm going to remember where all the books are and what they're all about. So when you come up to the desk, I'm going to be able to tell you immediately what the answer is, right? So the internet, the knowledge graph, remembers where all those websites are and what that information is in the website and links it all together. So it's like you need sort of that pathway, that web, to be established so they can do that. And then that superhuman librarian can tell you, well, right now that superhuman librarian is Google. They have the knowledge graph. They kind of mapped out where all the information is on the web. So all I'm suggesting is that we can create our own map for our performing arts information so we can also traverse the information that we want. Does that help you with the understanding of what a knowledge graph is?
Yes, thank you.
That's just a metaphor, but
Yeah. And one more piece of information that I would add on top of that is that a lot of website indexing is text-based. Knowledge graphs are not text-based, they're things-based. So they express information as entities, as concepts and relationships. And therefore, knowledge graph, information in a knowledge graph can be reinterpreted in any language, provided that you have translated those labels in different languages, which can be quite useful in a province like the Yukon, where you have English and French as official languages and many different First Nations languages that you may want to represent information in.
So yeah, and to add to that is in the beginning, and probably, what is semantic technology? Semantic technology in a nutshell, and it's really super simple but very, very powerful. And sometimes it tells me that language is terrible. Sometimes language is not a means of communication. But this is where we're at. So semantic technology is attributing meaning to a piece of data and its relationship to another piece of data. I'm not saying what we call that piece of data. I'm saying a concept. What is the meaning of this data? So let's say a presenter. A presenter could be called a presenter. It could be called a promoter. It could be called an impresario. And they present new music, contemporary music, jazz, like music. But so there's concepts. So we attribute meaning to a piece of data, the concept, not saying what we label it, not saying what we call it, and then its relationship to another concept, another piece of data. And just that, it's so machines can understand. So we're teaching, not even teaching, but we're underlining what this means and what the relationship. And it's basic Bobo things. It's like, this is a date. This is a date, March 2nd, 2022. This is an event. This is, the relationship to this event this is the date that this event is happening on. So we have to spell out everything. And that's, so that's another layer of on top of, we've got to figure out where all those books are in the library, in the internet. We also have to tell the super librarian, this means that. But the super librarian remembers. And, for all that we talk about AI becoming conscious, AI is pretty dumb because we're still at a level of assigning meaning to a piece of data in its relationship to another piece of data. And without this, AI doesn't work. And the majority of data in the world, that level 1, 2, and 3, it's not at level 3. So we still have a long ways to go.
I think we needed a session on knowledge graphs at the Open Data Summit because they're a fascinating thing. One aspect of knowledge graphs that I love is that they're apt at scaling horizontally a relational database management system is good at scaling vertically, as at adding the same type of information like a zillion times. Knowledge graphs and graph database can do that, but they're also good at adding different types of data and then changing the data model as new information needs arise. Doing that in a traditional relational database can be a nightmare. In a graph environment, not a big deal.
This is another thing I'm going to add to that. This is another thing. I'm sorry. I'm singling the Yukon government out. I'm so sorry. So sorry. We live in an app-centric world. And I'm not kidding when I said, app-centric world, you change your software, you got to change your transfer data from one place to another software. That is 90% of IT, how IT makes their money. They don't want to change this paradigm. If we're shifting to a data-centric world, it means software can come and go. And your data has flexibility to be modular and add new information into it. So you want your medical system to be using a knowledge graph system. I went to the hospital, the Montreal General Hospital, but I was at another hospital for emergency. I had broken my wrist on the ice. That's a very old lady thing to do, but I did that. I slipped on the ice and broke my wrist. But they couldn't get my file, and the guy had to physically go. My doctor was on the computer and go, "Oh my God, I have to physically go pull out a file." It's like we're in the 21st century, so they have no data systems can speak to each other. So and the cost of switching one software to another, it becomes not feasible. But if knowledge graphs allow us to have a data-centric model where new software can change on top of that and use it and be interoperable and just have cost savings over the long term. And I suspect, I'm so sorry, I'm highlighting and pulling you guys out. Yukon government is of a small enough size that it could probably be feasible to have a data-centric model. Because I think about the Phoenix space scandal at the federal level, and that is a relational database that is now billions of dollars and it's still not fixed. Billions of dollars into investment, and they got to change the software because the thing doesn't work, and probably because there's too many special cases in different government departments, and it's too difficult to handle a relational database. That's I get to do the performing arts. I'm a former arts administrator, so I really care about performing arts. So this is where my technology is focused, but there are broader, bigger problems that we can solve with this type of technology.
Tammy, this has been fabulous. I have one more question for you that I think might be a question
Absolutely.
that's not 100% related, but we're curious what your dog's name is, because Yukoners love dogs.
Muggsy.
Muggsy.
Yes, Muggsy. Muggsy is a pug, a mix, and I went to the pet store with my son who wanted a mouse. I agreed to a mouse when he was 7. So that was like 8 years ago. I agreed to a mouse, and my husband and son, I was with them, and I don't know what happened. We came home with her.
She's adorable.
Thank you. But I hope 30 minutes. Thank you for letting me participate. I was like a last minute speaker.
Well, thanks for jumping in.
That was great.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
I feel like we got a private workshop here.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are a small enough group that actually I feel as if I could actually have it's great because I had no idea what I was walking into. It's like online. I didn't have. But this is great because this is small enough for me to actually have a back and forth, which I appreciate.
Perfect.
Salut, Viet.
Hi, Tammy.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Merci.
Thanks.